Bravelands is an often neglected Aaron Hunter book series about animals who live in the African wilderness. We get perspectives from not just one species of animal like warrior cats and survivor dogs, but many, from elephants to lions to baboons to even gazelle. I've previously covered the first two arcs of Bravelands, the original arc and Curse of the Sandtongue. Now it is time for me to dive into the third and final arc of Bravelands, Thunder on the Plains. Will it manage to be as good as the last two? You'll see. But before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please think about subscribing. I regularly post animal fiction content, so you'll never be bored. And to my current subscribers, thank you so much for supporting me. I wouldn't have gotten here without y'all. Let's start with some brief background on Bravelands, so even if you haven't watched the first two videos, you can understand what's going on. None of the characters from the first two arcs return for this arc, including, unfortunately, my favorite spider, so you do not have to watch the videos on them in order to understand the storyline for this. Bravelands takes place in, well, the Bravelands, a wilderness inspired by Africa full of sentient animals, from crocodiles to plovers to elephants. Each category of animal speaks its own language, and they generally stay out of each other's business besides for crocodiles. Every animal in the Bravelands, besides for the lions and hyenas, looks up to the Great Parent, an animal who possesses a great spirit. The Great Parent maintains the peace and delicate balance of the Bravelands. And the Great Parent is pretty much the avatar but an animal. They can shadow project, view object memories, and much more. An animal is not born with the Great Spirit, but instead gains it when the previous Great Parent dies, and any mammal can be the Great Parent. With that backstory out of the way, let's get into the story. Stride is a cheetah. He's part of a coalition of male cheetahs, including Pace, One Ear, and their arrogant leader Jinx. Stride secretly takes care of his brother, Fleet, who became disabled after accidentally breaking his leg. He also takes an interest in Flicker, a female cheetah, which is a problem because Jinx likes her as well. Flicker learns of his secret and keeps it safe, as she doesn't like Jinx. Jinx finds out about Stride's secrets and attacks him. Flicker saves him. Jinx says that he told Flicker's family that she was mated to him already, and if she chooses Stride, they will abandon her. Flicker chooses Stride anyways. Jinx swears vengeance upon both of them. Wow, looks like we are in for Ash for part 2. Whisper is a buffalo whose mother is dead. She looks after her little brother Echo. Wow, this is exactly like Chase from last arc. Her herd is currently awaiting the return of the male side of their herd so that they can migrate. It is believed that the migration of the buffalo from the Bravelands is what brings the rain to it, and it concludes the dry season. Once the male side returns, Bello, the herd's guide/leader, is attacked by crocodiles and then lions. He is forced to step down and find a successor to guide the herd, as he will die soon. The buffalo asks the birds, who are messengers of the Great Mother, to choose who will be their new leader. The birds choose Echo, who is a literal child, and of course, everyone is shocked that someone so young had been chosen. Bello begins to train him. Finally, there's our third protagonist, a hyena named Cub. In order to get her full name, she needs to successfully kill something. However, she can't bring herself to kill any animal. Her packmates practically gift her a kill, which she manages to complete, and then they give her a name, Tailgrabber. Tailgrabber is dismayed by her new name, but she can't really do anything about it. Tailgrabber feels a connection to detrivores, or rot eaters, and thus feels connected to the Great Devourer, the god of the hyenas. She has a vision of a herd of buffalo reduced to only skeletons. No one believes her vision besides her sister, Nosebiter. She runs into a lion named Bold, who accuses the hyenas of killing lion cubs. The lion grabbed her pride and followed Tailgrabber back to camp. The lions then murdered all 5 of Nosebiter's cubs. A buffalo appears and he offers a treaty. If the hyenas work for the buffalo will work for the hyenas. The fighting group of hyenas goes with the buffalo, and Tailgrabber stalks them. She sees an oxpecker landing on each hyena, and afterwards the hyenas look angry and ready to fight. The hyenas then attack the buffalo. The buffalo happens to be Bello and Echo dies. Editor Rogan here, and while editing the audio, I realized I never followed up on what in the world is going on with the birds and the hyenas, and turns out the Aarons forgot too. I went back in the books trying to figure out what that was about, and it's a plot thread that apparently leads nowhere. So yeah, just thought you should know that, and it definitely tells you a lot about where the quality of this story is heading. Back with Stride, Jinx sends One Ear to kill Fleet, but Fleet kills One Ear and bleeds out after. Stride and Flicker decide to make it on their own. Flicker reveals that she faints whenever she runs too fast. They encounter some lions and they manage to outrun them, but just when Stride thought they were in the clear, Flicker's wounds became too much for her, and she passes away. Stride decides to ask Great Mother about her death, and is joined by Stronghide, a honey badger, in his journey. Back at the buffalo herd, Whisper suspects a male named Holler had her brother killed so that he could lead the herd. Whisper publicly accuses Holler of trying to kill Echo. He admits it and challenges Bello to a duel for the herd. He wins and the herd starts to migrate. Whisper and her loyal father Thunder stay behind. The hyenas go to Holler to get his help against the lions as he had promised. However, he refuses to help them. Holler also says that Tailgrabber tried to prevent them from killing the calf. The clan then exiles Tailgrabber and changes her name back to Cub. Cub stumbles upon Bold the lion and kills her. Then she renames herself the Breath Stealer after the first hyena. She's then taken into a swarm of insects possessed by the Great Devourer. She gets a vision that her mother, the clan leader, is in danger, and she tries to save her mother. Her mother is attacked by scorpions and dies. Nosebiter becomes leader, and Breath Stealer is accepted back into the pack. Stride and Stonehide finally find Great Mother. The Great Mother for this arc is Starlight the elephant. They hear other animals' conversations with her and learn that animal souls have not been going where they are supposed to, and instead have been trapped in some sort of spiritual sludge. That lines up with Stride's visions of Flicker's spirit, which always have been in distress and in darkness. The Great Mother reveals that the Great Devourer has always been around, and is fed on the souls that the Great Spirit has rejected, the souls of those who break the code. Now it has become greedy and aims to eat all souls. Also, Jinx tries to kill Stride, but is stopped. Whisper and Thunder go and confront the rest of the buffalo herd. Then some lions reveal that they have Echo and he's alive. They agree to give him back if they sacrifice 3 herd members to them. Whisper and 2 others sacrifice themselves. They go to the Lion Pride and Whisper runs away with Echo. Stride and Stonehide catch up to them. The lions are all afraid of Stonehide because Stonehide killed their leader, Noble's mate. The way that he did it makes him a code breaker. Whisper and Echo catch up with the rest of the herd. Echo challenges Holler and wins, but then they have to leave the herd anyway, so that was kind of useless. Thunder dies. Breath Stealer accepts her powers from the Great Devourer and leads her clan to victory against the lions. The lions want peace, and so they leave a cub with the hyenas as a show of goodwill. The cub is Bold's. The lions attack despite the treaty, killing Nosebiter. The hyenas want to kill the cub, but Breath Stealer defends him. She becomes the hyenas' new leader. Breath Stealer gives herself fully over to the Great Devourer to use not only against the lions, but against the Great Spirit, who allowed this tragedy to happen. Starlight sends Stride and Stonehide to find Breath Stealer. They find a forest full of bugs. They return to Starlight. Whisper believes that the Great Devourer has stolen Bello's soul, and that's why Echo is none of his knowledge. Echo and Stonehide go to the Black Branches where the Great Devourer resides to find his soul. Stride guides them there. Meanwhile, Breath Stealer takes a swarm of insects and hyenas to the Great Mother and kills her. Holler lies about being the Great Father. He tries to get the crocodiles to eat Whisper, but the Great Spirit intervenes and the crocodiles kill him instead. Echo, Stride, and Stonehide find the trapped souls. They free the spirits. Breath Stealer finds them, but Cub appears and tells her it's not too late to change and she doesn't have to kill any of them. She changes. Somehow, she learns on her own that killing herself will send the Great Devourer back to the underworld. She drowns herself, but is revived, and that's enough to banish Great Devourer. Breath Stealer names the lion cub Valiant. Stride decides to live with his friend's coalition. Whisper becomes the new Great Mother with literally no fanfare whatsoever. I cannot exaggerate how little fanfare she had. So, that was the story of Thunder on the Plains. Here's how I feel about it. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. When it comes to the main characters, I don't like them as much as the previous arcs. Breath Stealer has 2 changes of heart, and both of them take less than a chapter to happen. I feel as though she should have stayed with the Great Devourer until the end, instead of sacrificing herself. Her not dying was also disappointing, as it breaks a 2 arc long streak of characters sacrificing themselves. And also, it just sort of feels pointless. She didn't have to sacrifice anything and she gained everything in return. She doesn't even lose a leg. However, despite all of the flaws that I mentioned, Breath Stealer still manages to be by far the most interesting main character, as she actually has a personality. I feel like Breath Stealer should have been the only protagonist of this arc. Her rags to riches story is very interesting. She is the only main character whose personality is not pretty much cardboard, and she has complex relationships with her clanmates and family like Nosebiter. The feud with the Lions felt a bit undercooked, and if she was a protagonist, the Erins really could have done something interesting there. And Nosebiter is also the only protagonist whose story is not composed of mostly filler, something I will be getting into later. Whisper serves as a glorified servant for her brother Echo. I don't understand why he wasn't chosen to be the main character instead of her. She matters so little to the story that she isn't even present during the final confrontation where they rescue all the spirits. But Echo is. I wanted to skip the majority of Whisper's chapters, but I didn't, so I can make this review, so thank me for saving all that time for you. Stride was okay, but I feel like they rely too much on his trauma and backstory instead of developing his actual character. I can sympathize with Stride, and he's decently likable, but I like his companion Stonehide better than him. He is literally Root Spring, but worse. Can see ghosts? Check. Miserable all the time? Check. The ghosts that he sees are in distress and swallowed by a weird sludge? Check. His mate dies? Check. Starlight, the Great Mother, was by far the worst Great Parent we've seen yet. She's just completely devoid of all characterizations. She's incredibly bland, but the worst character has to be Greypelt. I didn't even mention him in the story section because I don't understand why he's included. Greypelt is a wolf who seemingly knows Starlight. He tries to guide Breath Stealer and make her less evil. He fails. He's built up to be an important character, however, the Erins never went anywhere with him. Shifting focus, there was a bit of ableism around Fleet. Specifically, I don't like this passage. I can't really figure out why I don't like it. In this passage, Flicker wonders whether Fleet has a life worth living because of his disability and almost asks Stride directly to leave him behind. By the way, this passage happens a few paragraphs before Fleet is killed off. It feels like the Erins killed off Fleet because they wanted to fuel Stride's character growth, and also because they didn't want Stride to have to look after him, which is silly because he wouldn't have had to look after him anyways if he had lived. Stride ends up spending 2/3 of the arc with the Great Mother, who would have gladly looked after Fleet as Stride went off on his 3rd wild goose chase of the week. Fleet in general only exists as character development for Stride, and it feels like he is a definition of a character getting fridged. Then there's Flicker, Stride's mate. Flicker also technically has a disability herself as she cannot run for long periods of time without fainting. She is also killed off. That's 2 for 2 on disabled characters killed off for Stride's trauma. The timeline of the arc is really out of whack. When Bello gets attacked by the crocodiles and lions, they make it sound like he only has days left. However, he ends up living for much longer than that. Nosebiter loses her cubs, gets pregnant with new ones, and starts showing in a book or so. Since hyena pregnancy takes 3 months, that makes me feel like she's probably a month or so along. Which means, since the start of the first book, she had cubs, she lost pregnancy, so that's roughly like 2 or so months. So the buffalo's leaving was delayed by 2 or so months. However, the implication of that on the cycle of the wet and dry season and the wet and dry season's implication on the Bravelands is never explored. If the wet season has been delayed for a few months, there should be way larger consequences in the story for what we saw. I feel like the Erins just sort of forgot about the timeline and were just throwing stuff together. Another thing that they completely forgot about was the Codebreaker plotline that was being set up with Stonehide. Sorry if this all feels thrown together. While reading the script, I just kept on thinking of more and more things to add to this section, so some of this stuff hasn't even been in here for like 2 minutes yet. And I just wanted to get a bunch of the complaints I have off my plate and into the script, even if they're not worded in the best way, so sorry about that. But overall, it is safe to say that this arc has to be the weakest of all the Bravelands arcs, and it might even be the worst Erin Hunter arc in general. It's disappointing that the series had to end on such a low note. So, Arc 3 sucked. But let's take a moment to reflect back on the entire series and whether or not it was worth reading and my overall thoughts on it. First, let's talk about the little brother problem. A strange quirk that Bravelands has is the obsession with giving female characters little brothers or male cousins to look after. Sky had Moon and later had to look after Nimble and Lively. Chase had Seek and was later tasked with looking after Terror. Finally, Whisper is Echo. Strangely enough, both Chase and Whisper are orphans. It feels to me like the author wanted to make them mothers, but also wanted to appeal to a certain age range, so they settled for making them have a younger sibling instead. They also wanted the romantic interest to not be pre-established too, because people love seeing romantic relationships grow and blossom. But it's annoying to me how the female characters are so parentified because of their younger siblings. None of the male characters have had their entire life revolve around a younger sibling, blood or adopted that they take in, like the female characters do. As I said earlier, Whisper is literally a glorified servant for Echo. So it feels misogynistic to me, but that might just be a me issue. Moving on, I feel as though the shift from a 6-book structure to a 3-book structure was beneficial for the series. The first arc already felt like 2 separate arcs, loosely stitched together by the presence of Titan, so the change only felt natural. You might say, if the change was so good, why was Arc 3 so bad? To which I have to say, imagine how much worse it would have been if the Aarons had to stretch it out to 6 books. Overall, I'd have to give the series a solid 7 out of 10. The first arc is pretty decent comparable to Warriors, though it struggled when it came to pacing. The second arc was a bit predictable, though it hit all the right moments of drama and catharsis, 10 out of 10. The third arc tried, I guess, and it is the main reason why the score is so low. Overall, I'd give this series a solid 6 out of 10. But what are your opinions on Thunder on the Plains and Bravelands as a whole? Comment them down below. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe. I make animal fiction centered videos pretty often and your support would mean a lot to me. And to those who are already subscribed, thank you so much for your continued support. I wouldn't have gotten here without y'all. Peace, Rogan out.